So there are some devotees with us this morning that weren't with us yesterday morning. So I'll do a little miniature review of the topic and what we discussed yesterday. Gita values has its origin, the term, and the little paragraphs connected with these 6 Gita values come from the Oxford Project devotees. That's some ISKCON devotees that over several decades they established a relationship with Oxford University. And there's today a division in the religion department of Oxford University that gives a degree in Vaishnava studies. And those devotees, along with some educators in ISKCON, got together and came up with very simplified explanation of Bhagavad Gita, and it's only 6 values, but 6 values to kind of help not the academic audience at Oxford University, but the public understand Bhagavad Gita in a very simple way. So that's the origin of the topic, and we'll spend a little bit of time with this spiritual culture and its values. Not the same amount of time that we spent yesterday, but spiritual culture is, we can say, the culture of Krishna consciousness, and there are values connected with the spiritual culture or awakening of our Krishna consciousness. We discussed this metaphor used in the secular world that culture can be likened to an iceberg. There's the tip of the iceberg, and there's behaviors that reflect culture. There's values that support those behaviors, and one influences the other. You can try to change the values of people by changing the behaviors, or behaviors may change the values of people. And at the bottom of the iceberg is the iceberg of culture is unchangeable certainties. It's not time and circumstance. Values can change, and there's some unchanging things in life. And whatever a person or a group of persons, whether it's an organization or a corporation or something, there's these 3 parts, like an iceberg. So we're going to be focusing on values. The goal of the values is not get values. There's not goals unto themselves. It's something that helps us get to the goal of spiritual culture, or awakening of Krishna consciousness. And that's at the very bottom. We could say that the Hare Krishna organization has some basic, unchanging convictions that they don't come and go over time, such as we're part and parcel of Krishna. As the part is meant to serve the whole, we're meant for serving Krishna. We have an eternal relationship with Krishna. And spiritual culture is to reawaken that. And values help us, and behaviors help us. And the idea is to align all 3. So we're going to be focusing on the values part, not forgetting that there's what's below and what's above, the whole iceberg. We spend some time discussing the difference between information, like, we know that we're spirit, soul, and do we really live our lives that way? And then there's wisdom, where you live your life that way, because that's what wise people do. They live their life according to what they understand. And then similarly in knowledge, Bhagavad Gita, we'll make reference to this from time to time, including today, but chapter 13, texts 8 through 12, items of knowledge, and they're all qualities. There are behaviors that are connected with those qualities, but a person in knowledge doesn't just have information, they have realization, jnana, vigyan, like that. So then the last image before we begin, quality number 2, or value number 2, is this term liminal space. It's intended to help people understand, whoa, that goal was really far away. And maybe it's not meant for me because it's too far away and I'm this little person that's not so qualified. Liminal is a Latin word which means in between this and that. It's used in the English language, in carpentry, in architecture, and in cultural engineering. People that are interested in helping society move to a better place, they use this term limin, or liminal space. And there are books written about it. Sociology people use the term, and it's a nice term. So when you're moving from over there on the left over to the right, and it looks like there's this big gap and you might crash land, it can be uncomfortable moving from where you were to where you are today, or excuse me, where you are to where you want to be. So that's good. Feeling uncomfortable is good. It's not bad. I mean, especially it's good when you know that you're going to a good place and the transition has its discomfort. So don't be in short, don't be intimidated by values that are too high. It's meant to help us get to the goal of reawakening our relationship with Krishna. And we have Krishna there to help us. That's the good news. So, Gita value number 2 follows Gita value number 1. Yesterday we discussed Samadarshana in many different ways. It's the verse from Bhagavad Gita, the term, Pandita Samadarshana. A Pandita, a learned person, one who is in knowledge, sees with equal vision. The person that sees with equal vision sees differences, and they see oneness within those differences. So we spent some time that oneness is the soul within, and then the package around the soul is different. Of course, souls are also different. But the oneness, we're all individual souls with different spiritual identities and unique relationship with Krishna, one of a kind, just like snowflakes. Not exactly like snowflakes, but as no two snowflakes are the same, no two souls are the same. And the packaging, the gross and subtle body, karma, and guna packaging are very different, even within the same species, or within the same family, etc. And that's just fine. We respect the differences and we respect the oneness, and we focus on the oneness and acknowledge, even when there's differences, still there's quite similar, that little exercise we did at the end. Recognizing even the packaging has its similarities or samenesses. So, Samadarshana precedes, the spiritual conception of life precedes non-violence. Say it negatively. Non-violence without a spiritual conception is a nice notion, but it doesn't work. It's not sustainable. There's nothing wrong with the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness is good. but it's mixed and it's not sustainable. So the goal of Gita value ahimsa is to go beyond the temporary into the spiritual conception of self and others, and in that consciousness take up the Gita value of nonviolence, ahimsa. That's a little summary. So, violence, not a new thing. Human history shows lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of examples of violence, and it's going on till today. The form of it may look a little different today than it did yesterday, but it's part of human existence, as far as history shows us. And naturally it's a question thoughtful people ask, why does this happen? And what to do about it? And then another question is, how is this related to equal vision? We'll spend a little time with both of these. Ahimsa is a very popular word in Buddhism. It's practically the cornerstone of Buddha's message. Non-violence means to act in a way that causes the least harm. You don't have to be a Buddhist. You don't have to be a Krishna Bhakta. You don't have to be part of something to recognize a value. That is, if I can lead my life, I understood this when I was quite young. If I can lead my life in such a way I'm causing less pain and suffering for others, that's a better path to move on. You don't have to be part of a religion to have that understanding. It's a value, it's a common sense value. So Buddhism embraces it, at least conceptually. We know, because we're Hare Krishna devotees, we know from Srimad Bhagavatam, the reason that Buddha gave this so strongly was, in the name of the Vedas, violence was being done to animals, and when he came to know that, he rejected the Vedas and rejected violence and said, stop being violent to animals. But not just animals, all forms of life and each other. So avoiding violence, this is common sense of what non-violence means. And there are different levels of violence. There's physical violence, there's verbal violence, and there's emotional violence. Just as a for example. When Dhruva was insulted by his stepmother, it was verbal, and when his father didn't do anything in response, that was an emotional violence to Dhruva. And Suruchi, I call her Sue Nasty. Suruchi, get off your father's lap. Her body language was violent. So violence, like domestic violence, is not only when somebody hits somebody, there's the other kind. So we want to avoid that. That's the one sense, but there's another perspective that Bhagavad Gita teaches, particularly Prabhupada in his purports explains very clearly. So let's explore that a little bit. You'll recognize this, the graphics are intended. In the lower right corner there's a key, in the upper left corner there's a lock. Keys are meant to open locks, and there's a lock in the shape of the heart. It's purposeful graphics. Non-violence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body, but actually, Prabhupada writes, non-violence means not to put others, oneself also, into distress. So, we discussed yesterday, we'll touch on it again. Buddha's conception of the root cause of suffering is desire. The Vedic conception of the root cause of suffering is ignorance. Because ignorance covering the soul induces ignorant desire, and ignorant desire induces ignorant activity, induces suffering. So the Vedic conception is remove ignorance, not remove desire. So non-violence means helping people become free from ignorance. And it's not just, it's a little more involved than just saying something, being a teacher and giving teachings. It's a little more involved. Prabhupada writes in the same Bhagavad Gita section, because it's one of the items of knowledge, or the qualities, ahimsa. People in general are trapped by ignorance in the material concept of life, and they perpetually suffer material pangs. That's an image to show ignoring. Stick your head in the sand, as the saying goes. Here comes a danger, or here comes suffering. Just pretend it's not there, or stick your head in the sand and continue in the material conception of life, and people suffer. So, allowing people to continue to suffer knowingly, is that violence? Supposing you're walking along the sidewalk and you see a bully beating up on a little kid. Doesn't have anything to do with me, so I just keep walking. Now, the bully is doing violence, but if we are not doing whatever can be done to stop that violence, within reason, at least call 911 or something, do something, then we're participants. One of the places I traveled, there was a high school girl in the congregation, bright girl, and she asked a question in a public forum, and what about gun violence? I mean, I get really aggravated when I come to know all, and it's like, it's non-stop. So I get on the bandwagon whenever I know there's some demonstration or something or other about gun violence, but lately I've been wondering, am I doing the right thing? Is this what devotees should do? Good question. Causes, social activism, political activism, it's big. So, if you see something, say something. So, here's the answer that I gave. I said, you're a devotee, so you know what the root cause of suffering is. It's ignorance. So supposing by social activism, political activism, there are stricter laws having to do with gun violence. So the group is successful to legislate more gun control. Is that going to stop violence? It springs from the modes of nature, guna and karma. And if guna and karma don't change, you just have some laws. Are guna and karma going to stop acting? Will that not anger, come out in some other way? Have you really effectively stopped the thing that you're concerned about? Then you have knowledge and you know what the root cause is, good and karma, and the implication in good and karma. So if there's some way that you can think of that you can educate the people that are interested in gun violence to understand the root cause of gun violence, that's what you as a devotee can do. You know, activism. Be active in helping people understand the root cause of their suffering. Because otherwise, it's not really going to accomplish what you're hoping it to accomplish. It doesn't mean that we're just pacifists or we don't take action when we see something. We say something. What we say, how does that, the expression of it can be, the form of that expression can be so many things. But it's very similar to Vyasadev's response when he looked into the future, he saw Kali Yuga and it was yikes. I've got to do something. So he did something. He provided the world with the Vedas in a written form so they could relieve themselves of ignorance. And Narada helped him. Yeah, Srimad Bhagavatam, please, in this expanded form, so people can really understand how to get beyond ignorance. So we can promote transcendental knowledge, both by, Harinam book distribution, classes, teachings, and so forth, and most importantly by modeling what a life is like that's free from ignorance. That's a nice service for a world that has too much ignorance. What's the antidote for Kali Yuga? Then we take up that with faith that it's much bigger than me. Kali Yuga is much bigger than me. And okay, I want to do my part. My part is having faith in the disciplic succession and the methodology of the disciplic succession is better than my own creative methodology. So, that's chapter 13. Here's chapter 10, paraphrased. Many times people don't know what actually benefits them and what is beneficial for human society in general. So we need to learn what it is and then help people understand what it is. The same section. The human body is meant for spiritual realization. So, any movement or any commissions which do not further that end commit violence on the human body. That which furthers the future spiritual happiness of the people in general is called non-violence. Very interesting. This is the Bhagavad Gita presentation of something that's a little different than the conventional idea of non-violence. A little sign. Spiritual ignorance alienates people. So when there's alienation between one and another, whether it's individuals or groups of individuals or nations or peoples or whatever, somewhere in that picture the root of spiritual ignorance needs to be addressed, because it's the foundation for violence at any level, those three levels. Again, here's Prabhupada from the same Bhagavad Gita section. Ahimsa means that people should be trained in such a way that the full utilization of the human body can be achieved. Well, that's a big goal, but you work towards the big goal, even if it's little steps towards the big goal, and you're acting in this Gita value of nonviolence, ahimsa. So now we're going to have our facilitator help us with some guided exercises. And you may want to turn the light on so you can see her.
The last.
Oh,
Good. You need this?
I can go.
The one on the right.
So, before we get started, once again, we'll need something to write on and to write with. And there are pens and paper over here. If you raise your hand. And then you can just
Can you help?
one devotee here. I think over here, right?
Yeah, what?
Over here is also. You can use your phones as well. if you prefer that. There's plenty of paper and pens. All right.
Can you see from way back there? You can see the screen?
Yes.
You got special vision. So bad, you can see through walls and stuff. Okay.
All right, so we're going to do a personal exercise, similar to what we did yesterday, but a little different. I'd like to request everyone to take some time to recall a situation that we were in where we felt non-acceptance of ourselves or of other people. So it's similar to, Maharaj gave a very nice example about Dhruva Maharaj. He, when he felt verbal violence, there's three types of violence: verbal, emotional, and physical. So in Dhruva Maharaj's case, he felt verbal violence, and then later, when his father did nothing about it, he felt emotionally affected. So think about a situation, a personal situation, where you felt non-acceptance. You felt violated in some way. And I'd like you to write down, once you've thought of this situation, please make a note of it. And you can describe the incident. Was it yourself? Was there anybody else involved? So make a note. We're going to go through a bit of a meditation, so this is an important part. This situation that you're going to think about, it's going to be part of our meditation. So take some time.
You gonna write, or you want something to write with? We'd like your full participation.
You want some too? So as you were writing, also include what were your feelings? How did you feel in the situation? Were you confused? Did you experience depression, anger, guilt, shame. When you start to look up, I'll know that you're completion, you're completed. We can try to wrap up, complete our reflection. So now, this is a very important part of the exercise. What we learn is that whenever we experience a negative emotion, behind that negative emotion, there's an underlying need that's not being satisfied. So this little pyramid, it's a pyramid of needs. I'd like you to take some time to reflect on that situation you just wrote about and try to figure out what was the underlying need that was causing the strong negative emotion. So we can just go through this real quick, starting from the bottom to top. A very basic physical needs that we have, water, clothing, shelter. And then the next level, there's safety and security. There's like job safety. Do you feel like your health is protected? Then there's love and belonging. So it's a need for love, for being loved, and for giving love as well. And then self-esteem. You need to feel confident, and you need to have a sense of achievement. And then the last tier is self-actualization. This is like, morality and creativity. Am I being moral? Do I have a need to be more moral in this situation? So see if you can take a look at this and try to figure out what was the underlying need in that situation you experienced.
Small announcement. Somebody parked a Ford Focus near the fire hydrant. They'll most likely get a ticket. So,
Do you know what color it is?
it's a blue Ford Focus.
Okay, then, thank you. Yes,
Can it be multiple?
oh, yes. There could suddenly be multiple needs in a given situation that are not being met. Mhm. When you start to look up, I'll know that you're ready for the next section.
I'd like to make a quick comment when we're ready. Some are still ready. Can I speak something now? Okay. This Gita value is ahimsa, which means non-violence, generally. And some of you may have attended the last two, or one of the two Gita Nagari retreats where the topic was nonviolent communication. It was called empathic communication for the pleasure of Krishna, something like that. But it's rooted in some teachings of Marshall Rosenberg, who was an exponent. He had a school, a whole thing on nonviolent communication for several decades. He traveled all around the country and sometimes in the world and popularized that term. NVC, got an acronym, Nonviolent Communication. So, Bir Krishna Maharaj and some others, Brajalila and Gita Nagari, she studied with Marshall Rosenberg kind of intensively, not kind of superficially, but intensively. And with the idea of taking that understanding, the model, and Krishnaizing it for the devotee community. And at the root of the nonviolent communication model is this thing, needs. Anyone that attended the seminar, you walk in the room and there's charts everywhere about needs and needs and needs and needs and needs. Brajabihari has commented in his academic training. You may know Brajabihari has a master's degree, at least, in conflict mediation and resolution. And that's a topic in conflict mediation and resolution. In interpersonal dealings, it really helps, or it's essential, for one party to understand another party's needs. They go further, needs, interests, and concerns. That's kind of an acronym to a NIC. Needs, interests, and concerns. And then another party has their needs, interests, and concerns, and a conflict person has to help the two parties understand the other party's needs, interests, and concerns. And it's like, what we're doing here is a little mini of something that was, 10 hours, 12 hours. So if you're interested, then I'll arrange for somebody to, make available the link where you can hear the recordings of those 2 seminars. The model of nonviolent communication. So there's where this, behind every negative emotion, there's an unmet need, and then there's the pyramid of needs, and etc. Or a combination of them. So it's, what you're seeing is a little mini of nonviolent communication, empathic communication. And it's not by accident that this is showing up in as a presenter. Part of something that I've learned as a presenter is it helps to hear something again and again and again. Not just so, oh, it must be important because I'm hearing it again and again. But it may take hearing it again and again to get a clear concept of what it is. That was feedback that I received from the devotees that attended part 1 and then attended part 2 of your Krishna Maharaj's presentation, and they said, part 1 is kind of like notional, theoretical, and didn't quite get it. Part 2, I started to get it, now I'm starting to practice it, and it's like really good. It's helping my relationships in my family, and it's helping da-da-da-da-da. We have communities. And sometimes within our communities, members get together and they don't understand one another and they have conflicts. So they let me out of here. Because I didn't sign up for conflicts. I signed up for, Shanti. And I'm seeing conflicts. But it's not a solution to become a avoidist. That's not a solution. So this is intended to help us improve our quality by taking the Gita value and connecting it in reality with life situations. And sometimes it's more extreme, sometimes it's more mild, but you bring 2 people together and you're going to have a conflict. Now, sometimes it gets worked out really nicely, and sometimes it doesn't get worked out really nicely. So how can we be better role models of being good examples of Krishna consciousness? There's a very practical aspect to why this is being presented. And hearing it again and again is deliberate. Because it takes a while to get it. And then what to speak of, live it. So I'm just a little blah blah about why this is here. It's a formal modality of nonviolent communication that's been around for a few decades, and it fits Krishna conscious and Bhagavad Gita values perfectly, seamlessly. The language is different from Marshall Rosenberg, but the Bhagavad Gita language and Bhagavad Gita value is completely in sync. Is to help us become better devotees and help us live in the community as better community members and helping one another. It's not just, my issues, it's being able to be an assistant, a good friend of someone who is also going through something like this. That's why, think of a situation where you felt not accepted, or you saw someone else was not accepted or not understood. What did it look like? What did you feel? What did you do? So, can we go just to the next slide, and I want to make a comment about the image. No, it's a cute image, and it's there's the person at the bottom, and then there's their mind, and in the mind cage is a bird, and it's meant to represent. The next image is where the cage opens, where the topic you're going to hear is where you feel you have to you're depending on others to take care of your needs, and your needs aren't being met by others. that's part of, from the negative emotion, my needs aren't being met. So I'm in a relationship with somebody, a friend or whatever. You're not meeting my needs. I'm feeling this negative emotion, and I may say it or not say it, but I'm feeling this negative emotion. And they may not even know what's going on, because you're not communicating what's going on. And it's not like, so part of the cage is to think, your purpose is to meet my needs. That's what our relationship is. And if you don't meet my needs, see you later. Or there's something wrong with you. Fault finding and, spoken or unspoken, acted upon or not acted upon, is, broken relationships, negative emotions. So it's a key, it's a cornerstone to Marshall Rosenberg's teaching, or Pierre Krishnamurti's book on empathic communication, is you're responsible to know what your needs are and to have a strategy to take care of your needs. And if you want to have a relationship with other people, it's really important to know what their needs are. They may not even know what their needs are. So if you can help them discover their needs, and then be a resource in whatever way that you can to help them with their needs. But it's their responsibility. You're just in a relationship to support that. It's a very different model than the business contractual, unspoken contract between people that gets violated because you had your expectations that weren't met. And they violated the unwritten contract. And so the relationship gets strained. So it's to help devotee relationships. That's the background behind what this little exercise is about. Go ahead.
So let's bring our meditation back to the situation that we just wrote down, and the feelings that you experienced, and the needs that were being unmet in that situation. And I'd like us to now take a moment to think of yourself as this bird in the cage. You can close your eyes to really put yourselves into the situation. You're this bird in this cage. You have unmet needs, and you have an expectation that the people in that situation are responsible for fulfilling those needs of yours. You really believe that in this situation, if that other person fulfills your need, you will be happy. That's truly what's going to make you happy. Now, I'd like to invite anybody to share. How did you feel as that bird in that cage? Was it a disempowering feeling? Were there other feelings? I'd like to open the floor for anybody to share their experience as they went through this meditation. Yes, Miranda.
I felt a sense of frustration, and mostly frustration, the realization that I'm even in the cage to begin with,
Yeah.
and why I'm in the cage.
It's frustrating.
Could you say it a little louder? I wanted to capture what you had to say.
Oh, I said that it felt frustrating
Yes,
to
I heard
be
that.
in the cage, and also frustrating at the reason why I'm in that cage.
For me, I felt like angry and limited.
Can you say that again? Angry
And limited.
and limited.
Yeah, and also like a loss of faith and like, trying to like, okay, I have to look after myself, that no one is there.
So you felt alone,
Yeah.
like there's nobody there to help you.
Abandoned,
Thank you.
uncared for.
Yes, Jenny, Blake?
I feel a sense of accountability to life outside the cage.
Can you explain?
Well, in the cage, other people are responsible for what I presume to be lacking, or holding those people or someone responsible for my needs.
Yeah.
And then that means then I get the privilege of blaming that person for my needs not being met, rather than being responsible for what I can do to have a more fulfilling life.
Good. Good. That's clear. Thanks.
Yes, Miranda.
For me, at that moment, maybe when others people were trying to meet my needs, maybe for some time I felt it was okay, but after that I felt very not satisfaction inside. I felt it was not right, something like.
Not satisfaction, even when persons are trying to help the need, I'm still not feeling satisfaction.
Yeah, maybe for a fraction of time I was happy, but the inside feeling I was
That's deep. Thank you for sharing that.
In the pyramid of needs, there's interpersonal and there's autonomy. Both are needs. And autonomy doesn't mean like, absolute autonomy. Autonomy means this what you just described. And then there's interpersonal, because we're also social beings. That's another need. But what does it look like when it's wholesome instead of, in a cage? Relationships.
Anybody else? Yes?
I felt, when I closed my eyes, I felt rejected or not accepted when I'm trying to display my needs. And I was going into my shell.
Your shell. You were going into your shell.
Yeah,
You feel rejected.
yes, yeah. I was going more into my shell then.
You use the word zone?
My shell?
Shell.
Myself.
She was going
Shell.
Shell, into a
A
shell.
shell.
Yeah, shell.
I use the word zone because that's a word that some people I know use. I went into my zone. Shell. Same. Okay.
All right, so now, in the next part, what I'd like us to do is, I want us to meditate that the cage is now opened. And I want us to remember from yesterday we learned the value of equal vision. So I'd like us to go back to that situation and consider that you yourself, as well as anybody else involved in that situation, is a spirit soul. And consider that the emotions involved, the body, all these are temporary coverings. When these elements come together, they cause negative emotions. Negative emotions can arise, but these are all temporary. And at the core, let us try to visualize that we are spirit soul, and so is anybody else involved in this situation. So go back, meditate on your situation, and what we'll do is, this is actually, so this in chapter 13 for the Gita text 6 and 7, this speaks about the 24 elements and the different fields of interactions like desire, hatred, and when all these come together, they result in some emotions. So if we can meditate on the fact that these are all temporary coverings, but the real truth is that you are so, and so is anybody else in this situation. You can take a moment to meditate in this way. Now, as you're in this space of equal vision, I'd like you to consider that how has your feeling changed from that of a position of non-acceptance to acceptance? And now from this space, if you consider those needs, you're in a space of acceptance, and you consider meeting those needs that were initially causing frustration, but from a space of acceptance and respect and a service attitude. Now, how do you consider having those needs met?
Got a video. Let's go back. Here's a little video clip that I believe it's a Christian video, but it's Get Service, that's what it's called. And when you're not in the mood of service, it's Grumpy Loka. And when you're in the mood of service, it's a different experience.
Kid, every time I'm pulling out, he's right there. Man, this is when he needs to talk to his parents. If they're at home. What is it with traffic today? It's like always, every day, the intersection's always crowded. I hate pulling out of here. I need some of these dumb roads. Oh, there's... Okay, so I'm not even here. Right. Great lady. Princess of Park. Sure. Take the spot. Way to be considerate. Oh. Kidding me? Unbelievable. Oh.
Thank you, man.
It's about time. Let's see, what do I want? Yeah, can I add a cookie to that order? Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem. You got in the world. I'm sure you need your cookies. The world, your oyster, and he's serving your cookies. Thanks so much. Yeah, I'll talk to you about that. No problem. 385. And it might take a few minutes here. We've got quite a line, obviously, and thanks for your patience. Great. Great for me. Wait it again. Unbelievable. What? What is that? What in the world? What am I supposed to do? How can I do anything about that? Can I even help with that? Oh, you need a copy, sir? I can't take this anymore. I gotta get out of here. Hey, buddy, come here.
Back to the professor role again now. Everything Gita values, everything in Bhagavad Gita is resting upon knowing who you are. That's the bottom of the iceberg. Who are you, really? Have you ever been to Los Angeles and gone to their Fate Museum? Who has done that? Here's the first exhibit. It's the Changing Bodies exhibit. And you go in, and it's like you're in India, the lights go out. And you're standing in front of a mylar mirror, and a light comes from behind you, so all you see is all the people looking at the exhibit, and then this deep British voice says, "Take a good look at yourself." Music. Who are you, really? And then the light goes on. So behind the mylar mirror, you can see the changing bodies, and you hear a heartbeat. And the spotlight goes on to the little baby in the womb, and then that light dims, and then you hear the little baby cry. And then that sound goes, and little boy bouncing the ball, and then you get to the end, and the coffin of the old fellow, and he expires. It's like really good, because people that don't know Bhagavad Gita, it's a powerful medium for saying, realize your spiritual identity different than the temporary body. Or, as it says here, become connected to the real us. Who you are and who others are. That's the Samadarshana. And then there you have the opportunity for real ahimsa. And when that real ahimsa is there, then the mood of service is naturally there. Not just give the kid a hug, but whatever is needed for the situation, and eventually it's not just a hug, it's removal of ignorance. That's the deeper need. And once we're connected like that, then you get the Samadarshana message. Pandita Samadarshana. 5:18. Bhagavad Gita is wonderful. Then, this is my final part. There's non-violence, there's concentric circles. Start with yourself. Charity begins at home, right? Start with yourself and your family, and then extend to your community and the people around you, and then, to humanity, and the circle gets bigger. And in all forms of life. Nice. But it starts within and then extends out. So we're ready for another exercise and then a video and we're done. That's a nice video.
All right, so we're going to have a little bit of fun now. But it's actually very thoughtful. We're going to have a few skits performed. And these skits illustrate, as Maharaj was speaking, empathic and non-empathic communication. So we're going to have a few volunteer devotees come up here. Before we watch these skits, I just want to introduce a few more concepts. These are very simple concepts, but I'm just putting some words to them. While we're watching these skits, I'd like us to observe certain phenomena that occur. So when we're watching the non-empathic or violent skits, I'd like us to observe elements. There are 4 elements that I'd like us to try to point out within these skits. One of them is demands. You can see you'll see in the interactions that somebody's making a demand from somebody else. A demand is like, you have to do this, otherwise you will get so-and-so punishment. That's the kind of emotion that comes from that. So that's a demand. And then you will also observe diagnosis. Diagnosis means labeling people. You are this, you are that. You will observe this come out in the skits. And then the next one is denial of responsibility. Now this means this is what we just experienced in the meditation, denying our the responsibility of our own needs and emotions. This is, we will also observe this occurring in the skits. And the last one is, there are 4 Ds, and I always forget, deserve. We'll find in these interactions that somebody's saying, I deserve this. This is what I deserve from you right now. So as we watch the non-empathic, I'd like us to observe these. It's actually very natural. I'm just putting specific words to this. We'll see these come out. And then on the other hand, in the empathic,
Wait for that one.
maybe I should, okay. So I'd like to first request, who's first on the list? I think it's Mother Shubhra and Vrinda. So they're going to play a mother-daughter interaction. And Raj, you said you were going to play a video at the end. But is it okay if you just remove this setup?
Absolutely.
Temporarily.
Absolutely.
Or we can just close the projector and then they can perform. Yeah, just
close it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and I can make some space for you.
It's a classic. I've seen this before.
Alright.
Okay, Tulsi, it's time to go to school.
I don't want to go to school.
What? What do you mean you don't want to go to school? You have to. You have to go to school. You have to become a doctor.
I don't want to become a doctor. I can't stand the sight of blood or wounds.
I don't care what you can stand the sight of, what you can't stand the sight of. You must become a doctor. Do you know how much money I have spent on your private school? I worked so hard to earn all this money for all these years. And then if you don't earn, how would you take care of me in my old age?
Well, I guess it's not in your karma to have a perfect daughter then.
Do you know how much I struggled to put all the means, all the things to get the money every month? I don't want you to struggle the same way.
Why are you so materialistic, Mom? Why don't you do what you preach?
Yeah, it's very easy to say money is materialistic when everything is given to you in a silver platter.
But why do I have to be a doctor? Can I do something else? I can be an artist, and then I don't even have to go to this gifted private school.
Artist? Artist is not no profession. It's a hobby for rich people. What will my family say? What will my neighbors say about you if you become an artist?
I just don't understand.
Alright, so let's just dissect that a little bit. Can anybody reflect where did we see a demand in this dialogue?
Go to school.
Right.
Become a doctor. That is the only profession.
And what about a diagnosis?
She could have said it in a nicer way.
Say that again?
She could have said it in a nicer way.
She could certainly have said it in a nicer way.
You're too materialistic.
Yes. You're
Too materialistic.
The daughter diagnosed her mother. And what about denial of responsibility? This is an interesting one too.
I don't care for your hard work. I don't care for your hard work.
Yeah,
You do for okay. I don't care how much money you put for me.
sure. That's along the right lines. Who is denying in that situation?
The daughter is denying.
The daughter is denying? What about from the mother?
Mother is denying, I don't care what you feel while standing along the blood or something.
Sure, that is very true. And the mother is also denying, she feels pressured to put her daughter through the school, and that she's putting that responsibility on the daughter. That pressure that she's feeling, that, you know, I feel like I have to do all this for you.
And what will my neighbors think?
She's denying her own needs and emotions. And the last one is deserve.
Both deserve respect.
The daughter feels that she deserves space.
Sure. And her choice to what profession, that's right. And the mother indicated very specific deserve. She
That's a
deserves.
good retirement.
Yes, exactly. She deserves that her daughter looks after her at the end.
Yeah.
Expectation.
Right, expectation, arrangement. All right, so I hope you got this message of non-empathic, this is non-empathic communication. And now we'll see the flip side of the empathic communication. And so before we get into it, now we have 4 elements of empathic communication. The first is observation. We make an observation of basically facts without labeling. You just observe what's going on. And then feelings. We try to acknowledge what feelings the other person or even ourselves we have. And then there are needs that we are familiar with. We saw that pyramid of needs. What needs are being unmet. And the last one is request. So instead of demanding, we make requests. And this forms empathic communication. So,
Okay, Tulsi, it's time to go to school.
I don't want to go to school.
You don't want to go to school? Is there something bothering you in the school?
Well, never mind. You won't understand.
Understand. Let's see. Could you tell me something? Is there something happening in the school that you're not comfortable with?
I just don't fit in.
Just don't fit in? That seems to be really tough. Could you tell me something more about it?
I'm just so different. Everyone says I dress like a grandma in the 60s. And then someone asked me why I wear a kantimala and laughed at my explanation.
Oh, I see. It must be really hard for you to not being accepted and respected for who you are. Yes, it is a hard situation. What do you think if you were to be respected by your friends and accepted? Would you still feel it's hard for you to go to school?
No, I guess I don't hate school.
Yeah, now I understand that it's more because you're not being accepted and respected that makes it challenging for you to go to school. The first time when I heard when you said you don't want to go to school, I felt a little anxious as a mother. I do feel a responsibility in me that I want to prepare you for your life so that you can have a living and independence and you can earn a living and I think that going to school can help you with that. But I do see your point that you are feeling concerned not being accepted. Esther, but I think we can talk more about it and see how our needs can be met. Sure.
Nice.
So certainly we saw quite a difference there in these interactions. Would anybody like to point out where we saw observations, feelings, needs, or requests?
Do one at a time.
Oh, sorry. Observation, did you see any kind of interactions where it shows that it's just an exchange of facts? What are the facts in this? What's going on?
So the daughter was comfortable sharing her concerns with the mom rather than shutting it to herself and keeping it to herself, and because of the tone in which the mom asked was very subtle, and she could tell why she doesn't want to go rather than saying like it doesn't matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of conversation that helps in future.
Sure, thank you.
Initially, the daughter said, "You don't understand," because she's an older lady than the high school things or whatever she's going. And then next comes the feelings. Yes, where she entered into the daughter's feeling zone.
Mm-hmm.
So she feels comfortable, and then the requesting next.
Sure.
Requesting more, okay, so what can I do for you to be comfortable in school?
Yes, it's very nice. Thank you. Yes,
Now, mom was not agitated when she said I'm not going. The tone was very like she was calmed down than before. So that
right.
the mother observed that the daughter was feeling discomfort and going for something much more subtle than what she is saying.
Yes.
She was careful to
Thank
see
you.
that.
Right.
She was empathic.
She was empathic. Yes, she was. Any feelings specifically that we can recall coming out there?
Mother expressed her feelings of why she, should be going to the school, how it helps her, making a living.
Yes. Near the end, she specifically expressed her own feelings, actually. She verbalized those. And
She also acknowledged the daughter's feelings
right, yes.
of not fitting in,
One thing she was
feeling rejected.
right. She was actually
Reflecting.
back. Her daughter would say something, and she would say it back in her own words. Right. And needs, specific needs that came out in this.
Yeah, the daughter mentioned that she's dressing like a 60s with continual liveries. And then the mother understood that it's not going to the school is the problem. The problem is not fitting the environment.
Right.
So how both of them can work out.
Right.
The next step she did.
And then at the end, as you said, that the mother made a request instead of demanding. She requested, let's work this out together.
So
Right.
like daughter expressed the need that she wanted to be accepted, like that's what they discovered basically. Mother mother expressed her need as she wants her to be independent. She expressed her need in that way that she wanted to be independent like when she grows up.
Yes, correct. Really nice. Thank you. All right, so let's have our second act come up. I believe that's Jenny Prabhu and Miranda. So just a different scenario, but the same exercise. First, they will illustrate non-empathic communication, and then we'll debrief, and then they'll do empathic.
Who's who now?
I'm the husband.
I'm the wife.
Okay. Non-empathic communication.
Did you cook today?
No.
You always slack off. You're like a rock.
You're always criticizing.
Don't we have a Vedic marriage? When I married you, you said you would cook for me. And if you don't cook for me, I don't see what the point in marrying you was. This should be a Vedic marriage.
Vedic marriage. Then you should be like Ram and I should be like Sita.
You're always criticizing me.
You're judgmental.
We all have to do things we don't want to do. I go to work like a donkey, and I come home to be kicked by you. We just have to do those things even though we don't want to do them. And I have to do them because I'm a father and your husband, and you're just like your mother.
The last straw. You do not bring up my mother.
You're just too sensitive.
Those of us who are married are probably situation. But let's try to dissect this now. Were there any demands over here?
Cooking. Food or cooking, yeah.
Right.
Basically.
Yes, underlying need. Were there any diagnosis or labeling?
Mother is the problem.
Like your mom.
Just like
Yeah. Say that.
Just like your mom.
Just like your mom. There were quite a few actually. They diagnosed a lot here.
like a rock.
and she said he's judgmental.
Right, and what did he say in response?
Insensitive.
You're insensitive.
Yeah,
Right, there's a lot of that actually. And what about deserve?
He's a husband, so he deserves much.
It's realistic. And she's a wife, she needs rest.
And denial of responsibility. This is an interesting one, but it was,
The wife.
yes.
Denial of responsibility.
Yeah, the wife.
Can you expand?
When she said, when the husband asked for lunch, she didn't have it prepared. I don't know if I should call that responsibility.
When he said we're supposed to have a Vedic marriage, and she said,
Yeah.
does that mean we should be like Sita and Rama?
So denial of, these are all good points. Denial of responsibility is you're denying your emotions and feelings. So specifically where this came out in this conversation was when Janitai, or the husband, he said that I hate going to work, but I have to because I'm a father and a husband. So he's feeling this strong emotion, hatred, and he's blaming it or putting the responsibility on his wife and his child. It's a little more subtle to understand this denial of responsibility, but you're denying your own emotions and needs. All right, so are you guys going to show us the empathic now?
Did you cook today, dear? Oh, it sounds like you might have had a busy day.
I did. Vishnu was up all night and he threw up. We couldn't sleep.
Oh my, I'm so sorry to hear about that. I think you're feeling overwhelmed. I know it's not easy when I'm out of town. Thank you for all that you do.
I'll tell you what, if you can take Vishnu to the park for some time, I can quickly make some time.
That sounds like a great idea.
Pretty easy to switch. Okay, so any observations that came out in this?
That must be my neighbor's house.
I'm sorry?
That must be my neighbor's house.
Observations. What observations were made in their exchange?
The husband observed that the wife was busy because of the child.
Sure, yes. Feelings? Any feelings that were expressed in this exchange or acknowledged?
She was feeling overwhelmed or tired.
Yes, right, and he verbally expressed that to her directly. And needs.
The wife understood that the husband might need dinner.
Sure. Yes, and in the end, what happened?
She made a request.
Yes, she made a request. How about you take
Sharing responsibilities.
Sure, yes. So certainly easier said than done. One thing that I personally noted in this exchange was that, at the end she didn't have to make that request. But because of the prior exchange and the husband really bringing out her feelings and acknowledging her feelings, that brought her to the point of, you know what, maybe it's okay, maybe this is possible, how about you help me out here and I'll. So she didn't have to do that part, but because of the pleasant exchange initially, it came to that point. So that was something I personally observed. All right, thank you guys. Thank you very much. And we're going to do this one last time so that we really understand our 4 Ds of disconnect and our 4 elements of empathic communication. So I invite Siddhari Prabhu and Yagmara Prabhu.
One more husband, wife.
They're in the role of a devotee and a temple president. I'm not sure who's who actually, I don't know what you guys.
We've been living the script for some years now.
The original.
Hey Haribol, Vishnu Prabhu's sick, so I need you to cook Sunday feast.
I have my rounds left. Sorry.
What do you mean you have your rounds left?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada said you gotta wake up at 4 a.m. You know, when you first came here and you needed your green card, you were willing to do anything. But now we can't even get you to chant 16 rounds most days. I think you're in big Maya.
What about you? Do you know about that? You call yourself a devotee and can't remember a single shlok. And then you ask me to do all these different services. Can't have enough people in the temple room to do cleaning. You know, what am I supposed to do?
Didn't see.
Okay, that was pretty intense actually. So, any demands? Green card? Right in the beginning.
I want you to cook the feast.
Kick the
Right,
fist.
this is a demand. And deserve. Was there deserve in this?
I feel like implying about his chanting, because with Krishna consciousness, like that is, I think, a part of deserving too.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got your green card. I'm deserving.
I deserve it.
Yep. You should do what I say because I got your green card.
And diagnosis. There was quite a bit of diagnosis, labeling.
You are in Maya.
You hardly chant your 16 rounds. That was another.
What kind of a president are you? You can't do things right.
Yeah. That's
Diagnosis.
And the final one was denial of responsibility. That's an interesting one. Is there any denying of our emotions and feelings?
The brahmachari not being able to perform the service is the denial of responsibility.
Instead of saying his own emotions at the end, he just put it back on me that I don't know any Bhagavad Gita shlokas and I can't manage temple properly.
Also, the temple president didn't express any of his emotion or what was going on his side. So I heard that also.
There was a disconnect.
Yeah.
Right. Part of what, as Maharaj mentioned earlier in the talk, that when there's a lack of communication, that's also what causes, one person is thinking all these things in their head, but the other person has no idea. So, it happens too. All right, so, empathic vision.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hey Prabhu, Vishnu Prabhu is sick, so is it okay if I ask you to cook the Sunday feast today?
But I have all my 16 rounds left.
Okay. Yeah, rounds are important. I'm glad. I know you take your vows to your spiritual master seriously, so I want to see that you're able to do that.
Thank you for understanding that. Most people don't understand that I also need some space for spiritual growth.
And I know you're doing so much, and you're often on the altar in the morning and then in the evening, so it's probably hard to find time to chant your rounds.
Actually, you're right. Thank you for sharing that, because last night I was up until 1 a.m. cleaning the floors, and the last couple of days shopping, driving cars, this and that. It has really taken a load on me. Thank you for understanding it. You know what? If you can get somebody to cut vegetables, I can actually cook. In short time.
No, it's okay. I'd rather just see you chant your 16 rounds in peace. I can find somebody else to cook the feast.
I think if you give me 2 hours, I slept early this morning, I didn't attend Mangalarti, so I can do the cooking. If you can get somebody to cut the vegetables, I'll be back in 2 hours and I'll finish it.
Well, I know the devotees would be happy with that because your cooking is another gift from Krishna. So, yeah, I'll find somebody to chant your vegetables or chop your vegetables. You can cook the feast.
While I've been seeing this actually play out, it's so amazing to see the two sides. It's like a whole different world. But let's see how we observe any observations made in this exchange.
instead of like demanding, he requested, so that's the tone changed completely.
Sure, that was, yes, he made requests. Right in the beginning, he made a request instead of a demand. That's true, yes. Were there any more requests in this exchange, since we're on requests?
In the end, the brahmachari requested if he can bring someone to cut the vegetables.
Yes,
Then-
right. They both made a request of each other. And what about feelings? Were any feelings acknowledged in this exchange?
The brahmachari expressed that he felt happy and appreciated that the temple president understood that he needed to chant his rounds and the importance of the spiritual master.
And as a result of that, he also expressed some needs. Can anybody remember what those were?
He needs some rest.
He needs rest. And even the temple, yes, sorry, go ahead.
Even the space thing, he said.
Right. Yes, right. He said I do, most people don't usually think I need space too. And were there any other nuances in that, in the exchange that you can think of? You can even bring it out if you...
Also the need to be appreciated.
Sure, yes.
For all the services that
He did do that, right. The temple president appreciated. Made appreciation. Okay. All right. So that was our final skit, and it was really nice to observe the two, the empathic communication and the non-empathic or violent communication in those exchanges. And I think, well, what I want to say is, if that's okay?
Yeah.
I just personally want to say that engaging in these exercises that we've been doing about, personal reflection on our situations is not something that has been familiar to me, my Krishna consciousness. In fact, it's quite something foreign and hard for me to, to sit down and, in a specific situation, in a given moment, to sit down and dissect in this way. It doesn't come easy to me, but I have been trying it recently, and I've also been catching myself in my speech, especially with my husband. This is where we practice the most if you're married. And I can see within a year immense transformation, actually. Like, we still have difficult situations, but the way they end up are much less severe, if I want to put it that way. So that's my personal experience of actually applying these exercises that we're observing and engaging in over here. And I just wanted to share that with you all. And I think now Maharaj has a video to show.
That's a short one.
Okay. So we'll bring this.
Yeah.
Right here.
This is somewhere in some foreign language, Fiji or something like that, some Philippines or something, where the video was made.
เอาไปเลยนะขี้ขโมยไหนดูสิเอาอะไรไปออกมาสิไปทำอะไรเนี่ยฮะถามว่าเอาไปทำอะไรเอาไปให้แม่ฮะแม่ป่วยอ่ะอย่าทำอย่างนี้อีกนะโอ้ยก็เอา จัดไปสั่งมาเรื่องต่อเลย
get service. Hare Krishna. So we're way past time. We'll just end abruptly and have a nice late breakfast. Yeah, I'm going to say something else too. Don't get up yet. Hang on just a sec. Please, hold on.
I just have one request. Every day we're having these really nice interactive exercises, and I think every day we have some kind of skit or role play. And I want to thank all the volunteers who have volunteered for every single day, but I'm kind of looking for somebody to help me out on Tuesday. Tuesday in the morning, I haven't, just one or two people. It's something really simple and similar to what we did today. If you're interested in the service and you're going to be present on Tuesday morning, just come and talk to me and I can help you with that. Thank you.
And one other is a reminder on Thursday, building up each of the 6, some action items that you can try to work on for the next month, and each of the 6. So not just, try to bring it inside the transformation element, not just nice understanding, but application. Reminder.
Today Maharaj will speak at the Farmington Hills Temple at 1 p.m. and then the Detroit Temple at 5 p.m. So we can this association.
And then the next 3-4 days we have the